What's going on, everyone? Brian Downard here. And in this video, I'm going to just briefly break down how you can leverage deposits on your sales calls to elicit just more of a commitment from someone who is waffling, and when it's appropriate to use the deposit and when maybe it's not appropriate. And hopefully this video will give you some insight. Cue the intro. All right, cool. So really, what I learned in sales is a deposit is kind of like playing sales, where you're not actually getting the person to make the commitment that they need, and you're kind of just taking a half measure and not stepping up to the plate and really asking them for them to make the full payment. Now, there are of course some exceptions to this rule, and very often, people taking out their credit card and making that initial payment is the hardest part of the sale. So how do we make that easier for them to do while making sure that we're not letting people just say, yeah, cool, I'll think about it, and then never get back to us? Now, the only time that I can really say that there's no excuse to not use the deposit is when someone has some kind of upcoming logistical timing issue. The most common thing is going to be some sort of planned trip, vacation, or something where they're not actually going to have the time to commit to the product that you have, but they want to do it. It's just like, hey, I really want to do this, but I'm actually going on vacation in about 10 days. I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, going to be offline, and I want to make sure that I start when I get back. So this would be the most clear and easiest example I can give you of when it is totally appropriate and makes perfect sense to ask for a deposit. And in this way, we can get someone to put down some money, and we can get the ball rolling for them when they get back from that trip, initiate the remaining payment. Now, what I would do in this instance is, and in an instant, would be get the next payment to be scheduled. So, hey, I know you're going on a trip. Don't want you to feel like you're gonna have to put down all that money right now and not get the benefit. Let's do this. Put down a deposit right now of XYZ. I prefer the deposits in the neighborhood of $500 to $1,000 at a minimum. And then what we can do from there is on XYZ date, we'll initiate the remainder of the payment, and you'll do kickoff call, and we'll get the ball rolling. Now, this is probably the only acceptable time that I would say you should use a deposit, but there are some other cases where I'm not going to go as far as to say it's unacceptable, but there are some things where if people have this kind of fear, they want to do it, but they need to think about it, and they're just kind of pushing off the decision. What I've done in the past is made the deposit too much about myself rather than leading from a place of service. And what I would do is hey, I hear you, we can schedule a follow-up call, but what we ask in exchange for that, because hey, our calendars do fill up quickly, and I want to leave those spots open for people who are serious about making this commitment, which is all true, it's too self-serving to me, right? It has to be more about them. So instead of saying hey, I get really busy, want to leave these spots open for people who are committed, so put down a deposit if we're going to schedule a follow-up. And this is unfortunately, fallen through for me a few times where I did that, and then it just turned the people off, and it wasn't about them. So they clammed up, didn't want to make any investment, and did not do what they needed to do. But that being said, and that aside, if someone is really wanting to do it, but they're just needing to think through it. So here's a couple of ways you can kind of soften that. What I have done moving forward is say hey, let's do this. Can I help make the decision easier for you? So what I recommend that people do when they're in your position is make a deposit. It's not for me. It's not a commitment for me. It's a commitment for yourself. And frankly, because the most common decision that people have is indecision. And the hardest thing for people to have to do is make that initial payment. So what I'd ask you to do is put down the deposit. I'll give you until XYZ time frame when you can go do what you got to do, put the funds together, really think through this. And that way you can think through it without having the burden of feeling like you have to take out your credit card and make this big investment. And then once you have decided whether or not this is for you, we can come back on. If you decide, hey, ultimately this is not what you want to do, I'll refund that deposit, no problem. But I know once you think through this, you'll know this is the right decision, and then we can get started from there. And this is an important part. And what I will do for you putting down this deposit is send you XYZ resource. It's usually for our clients only as a show of good faith and to kind of get this ball started. Now, The other time when it's not maybe the most acceptable, but still I'll take it, is a logistical concern around moving money around, right? I don't want to push off a call to a point where people aren't going to show up and they're going to ghost me. So saying like, hey, I have to move some money around, Brian. Hey, no sweat, totally understand. Well, why don't we do this so we don't have to delay? Because I know you want to get the ball started and get it rolling quickly. Put down a deposit of $500, and that'll give us permission to get the ball rolling for you, get things organized on our end, get things set up. And that way, when we come back next week and you pay the remainder, the team's already got everything set up and ready to rock right away. So those are the two instances where someone's being a bit non-committal and or needing to move some funds around that I would ask for them to kind of put down that deposit to have some skin in the game. But again, just some things that I've learned around the deposit frame is if you make it about yourself, you'll turn people off. If you do deposits that are less than $500, usually that gives people this feeling like they have the permission to ghost you. And you want to make sure that you're using it sparingly, because what ultimately in a perfect scenario might be after they make the payment is you could say something like, hey, so how did that feel? Was that scary? You still alive? This still something you're wanting to do? Okay. How do you feel about just making the remaining payment? Because a lot of times that deposit, like $500, is going to be a lot easier for someone to digest than a $2,000 payment, but it's the scariest thing for them to have to do is get out their credit card. That's why in some instances with certain offers, we may have a weekly price point. So they're going to pay the same amount if they paid month to month, but the initial payment to get started feels like such a no-brainer, and it's easier for them to get over the psychological barrier of having to take out their credit card. So these are the couple of instances that I've used deposits in a couple of frames that should maybe help you. Make it about them, not yourself. Do right by them, give them a little extra. And again, it can always be refunded, and let them know that, but it allows them to make the commitment without having it be so scary, and then really think through what they need to if this is something they want to do without that burden of the financial part. So hopefully this makes sense. Just gonna do a quick video today, mostly because I'm trying out some new editing software. So hopefully you guys like this. I'll see you in the next one. And like and subscribe if you found this helpful. Adios.